Welcome to End Business Insider. This is Sartaj. So today we are in Mapmygenome, and with us we have the Vice President of Mapmygenome. He is Mr. Udbhav. So who is Mr. Udbhav and what is Mapmygenome? That you'll be getting to know in this interview. Hello, Mr. Udbhav.
I'm good, thank you.
So firstly, let's talk about you.
Sure.
Who is Mr. Udbhav and what's your journey?
I'm working in Mapmygenome as a Vice President. So I joined Mapmygenome back in 2015.
2015.
2015. So we were about a couple years old at that time, and it was a very small, very exciting company to join. So I joined as a product manager at that point of time, and then over time the company grew, my role grew, and today I'm handling business strategy and expansion for the company. I'm looking at new initiatives as well. So quickly about me, I am a biotechnology professional. I did my undergraduation in biotechnology before moving to the UK to do a master's in biotechnology and enterprise. So yeah, it was a very interesting background because it taught me a bit about biotechnology as well as commercialization in the life sciences. And that's what I put to use here. So yeah, it's been 7 years, almost 7 years with the company, and it's been fantastic.
So we've read few articles about Mapmygenome. So there are audience who actually know about Mapmygenome and there are few who don't know. Right. So we just give a brief about Mapmygenome.
Mapmygenome, if I put it very, very bluntly, we do DNA testing. Right? Now, DNA testing broadly, because of Angelina Jolie and because of all these things, DNA testing, when you think of cancer, you think of, diagnostic testing. And that is true. That is one part of it. And we do that as well. What sets us apart, though, is the concept of what we call preventive genomics. And that is what Mapmygenome's USP is. So preventive genomics essentially is this very, very exciting science wherein from a healthy individual, such as yourself, I can take your DNA and I can quickly scan it for variations in the DNA. All of us have some variations in our DNA because of which we look different, we behave differently. And similarly, those variations lead to changes between how you and I respond to the same kind of diet, how you and I respond to the same kind of workout, what sort of diseases you might get in the future or have a risk for, what kind of medication is likely to work for you or not, right? All these are noted down in those little variations in our DNA. And as a company, that is what we search for. That's the crux of it, right? That's what we do. So depending on what sort of information you want, we offer you different kind of products, but essentially it is your DNA is the source code for you being who you are as a person. We read that source code for you and tell you this is how you're programmed to be. And then we tell you how you can basically utilize that information to be the best version of yourself.
So in my childhood, once I took my grandparents for sugar test, I guess. So then they said that you have to wait for 7 days because we need to send the samples to Bangalore.
Right.
So is it the same even here, or else you have your own labs?
No, we do. We do have our own labs. In fact, in this very building, we have a lab here. And earlier this year, we also expanded to Delhi and Bangalore. So we've got labs there as well. And currently, we're in the process of expansion again. So we are going to have our own labs in 4 other cities in India as well. So we have our own labs. We do not outsource. Regarding 7 days, we have blood tests also. We've started doing that now. That is also done in-house. Genetic testing is also done in-house, but that obviously takes longer because you have to go through, I have to take your DNA and go through the entirety of it. So it takes about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But it's all done in-house.
The wait is worth it, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So can I know just the mode of operation of Mapmygenome?
Absolutely. So Mapmygenome, as I mentioned, we are doing DNA test, blood test, radiology. So for blood test and radiology, obviously we can send a phlebo home and you come to our center. But coming to the crux of it, the DNA test, it's actually very, very simple. Go online and place an order and we ship out this kit to the customer, right? It's a simple kit that we send to the customer and it basically has a simple saliva swab, right? You open up the kit, you get the swab, you take your sample, put it back in this, and you just give us a call, we get it collected.
You'll get it collected?
We get it collected, absolutely. And then the sample reaches us. We've got logistics partners all over the country. So within 24 hours to 48 hours, we get the blood sample, we get the saliva sample in. And then it's subjected to the lab process, which, we do the sequencing, we do the analysis, we do the reporting. And then in about 2.5 weeks, we send out the report via email to the customer. It's a PDF copy. And very, very soon, we have an app coming out as well. So you will soon be able to log in and check the report there. And then once this report goes out, this is your genetics report. So it'll tell you about the genetic risks that you may have for certain diseases. From a sports and fitness perspective, what is the genetic blueprint say about what you ought to be doing? Now, once this report comes out, then we schedule a one-on-one session with a genetic counselor with the client. And the genetic counselor will essentially walk you through the report, and they will tell you, and this is very, very important, they will tell you that based on the genetic risk or whatever genetic score we've received, what are the lifestyle changes, what are the dietary changes that you ought to do to capitalize upon any genetic strength that is uncovered and mitigate any genetic weakness that is uncovered in your report. And then all that is encapsulated into a second report, which goes out to the customer. So customer just has to give their sample and relax, and then we take care of it end-to-end process.
So whenever I get a thought of diagnostic centers and we said about DNA, I was thinking you need to take a lot of blood.
You can give blood if you want. I mean, we're happy, but that's the beauty of DNA, by the way. From your hair, from your blood, from any cell in your body and saliva, whatever. I can take DNA from any cell in the human body and it's identical. So we go with saliva, it's just easier.
Easier, true. There's a long process, however, so that's why you take 2 weeks time, right?
Yes, it takes about 2 weeks because we have to sequence the DNA. So one molecule of DNA, by the way, is made up of about 3.2 billion letters or data points that you get from DNA. So we have to sequence the DNA and look for specifically for the markers that we are looking for in your DNA. And that's a whole bioinformatics pipeline. We have a fantastic team here that's been doing it for 22 years now. And we've now also got a patented machine learning based algorithm that scans through your data and generates an interesting report. But yeah, it takes time.
So yes, so you said a lot about Mapmygenome, but now customers also need to know what are the packages which you provide.
Right.
So what packages you actually provide to the customers? Do you have anything like 2 to 3 packages involved in one single package like that?
Packages is a very, very, very diagnostic center terminology. Sticking to genetics, right? What we have is, as I mentioned, we look at DNA, right? And the DNA essentially has genes which control every aspect of your biological existence, right? From regulating your breathing to cell division to your how your body is breaking down food to the kind of diseases you might get to, in fact, your ancestry. Where did you come from, right? Where did your ancestors migrate from? All that is coded in your DNA. So we call them products, not packages. But our products are basically a subset of the information that the customer requires. So if you're looking for only, let's say, sports and fitness, we have a product called MyFitGene, right? Which looks at only the part of your DNA implicated in sports and nutrition. Then we have a product called Genome, which is our primary wellness product. It's looking at disease risk estimation. It's looking at over 100 different kind of diseases, the risk that you might have. We are looking at, so just nutrition, we have a product called MyNutriGene. Then we have a very, very cool product called Genome Heritage, which is a DNA ancestry test, which tells you that, through the years, since the beginning of civilization, correct, where did your ancestors migrate out of? What's your genetic ancestry? And then obviously we offer, there's a bunch of other tests. There's another very interesting, actually it's a very cool test. It's called MedicaMap. MedicaMap. It's a pharmacogenomics test. What that means is that without you ever having taken a medication, I can tell you just by looking at your DNA and your genes, what is the likelihood of a given drug working for you? Are you likely to respond well to the drug, not respond well to the drug, require a different medicine, or if there's a risk for adverse drug reactions? And this is fantastic. And the medical community has really taken up this product in a very, very big way. And then we have other such products as well. You can log on to the website and take a look. And then we also do, as I told you, we also do blood tests, etc. So there we do regular full body blood work packages. But this is basically what
these are interesting packages, right?
Yes.
So these are a lot of products you have, right? So you have customers already with you.
Correct.
So customers are more interested for knowing about their history or else knowing about the sports and all, or nutrition?
That's an interesting question. It's for a lot of people, that's what it is, right? So there's a lot of interest in the ancestry product, right? Because knowing where do I come from is a very, very basal question, right? It's something that tugs at each and every one of us, and it's something we all want addressed. But then again, so is a question, who am I? Who makes Udbhav, right? And the way to do that is to basically look at your DNA and figure out how you're built at a molecular level, right? So that's where something like a genome patri gets a lot of interest. It's an interesting question because maybe until 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, right? People were more interested in products about fitness, products regarding nutrition, finding out their ancestry, optimizing their diet. And disease was something people were a little scared to know about. However, I think post-pandemic, that's one thing that really changed and people started owning up to their health. So Genome Patri has really picked up after that.
So what do you think? Knowing about the diseases which they would encounter in future would actually might help?
Of course it would. So one thing to know is that, see, there's this misconception out there that your genetics define who you are and that's it, right? It's never, when it comes to human health, the whole nature versus nurture debate, it's never nature versus nurture, it's nature and nurture, right? So your genetics essentially defines who you are. It gives you your genetic abilities. For example, this is what you're built for. This is what is easy for you. This is what comes difficult for you. And genetics is always going to have an interplay with what we call the environment, which is your lifestyle, your nutrition. And that is something that you can absolutely change, right? So if you find out today, right, I'm 32 years old. If I find out today I have a high risk, for example, I have a high risk for something as serious as prostate cancer, right, genetically. I'm not going to wait until I'm 40, 45 to go for a prostate exam. I'm not going to wait until I'm 45, 50 and my doctor says, hey, there's a reason for you to do a blood test. I'm going to say, well, I know here's a risk. I'm making a few lifestyle changes and there are a few things I'm going to do from a prevention perspective to be more proactive about my health.
So you say prevention is better than cure.
Prevention is the cure.
So prevention is the cure.
Is the cure.
Mm-hmm. So as you said, you talked about pre-pandemic and now we're going to talk about post-pandemic. So after post-pandemic, this lot has been changed either in the healthcare facilities or in the diagnostic centers. So what do you think in diagnostic centers? What are the changes which you have seen post-pandemic?
The one change though that we saw, and I'm sure the other diagnostic centers saw it also, was not really about the way the center was operating, but it was a change in the mindset of the consumer. Right, and it's a very, very interesting change that we saw, that pre-pandemic, people's assumption of what's healthy versus unhealthy, what's fit versus unfit, was very, very different. Because if you look at the pandemic, right, and especially, for example, the Delta wave of COVID, which was devastating, right? We all know people that we were close to who we might have lost to the pandemic. It triggered a question in people's minds, wherein they said, hey, the guy who I thought is healthy, by my metric, that he's a non-drinker, non-smoker, eats healthy, works out regularly, and that person succumbed to a simple virus, whereas other people did not. So suddenly this idea of, maybe health goes beyond something that's affecting me right now, and it's something that is probably deeper within, and I need to take charge of my health today rather than wait for it to break. That mindset really, really drove a very preventive and proactive approach in medicine. For us, from a DNA testing perspective, as well as in even regular blood tests, etc., right? People started taking charge of their health, which was not the case earlier. And that was a very good change that we've seen in the community at large post-pandemic.
So believe it or not, competition is normal in each and every, workplace or whatever it is. So what kind of competition are you facing right now or you faced before?
So competition is not just normal. I'd say competition is encouraged.
Encouraged, okay. The positive thinker.
Keeps us on our toes. We have to keep giving our best. But so if you look at the field that we're working in, right? So blood test, obviously there's tons of companies out there. Diagnostic genetic testing, again, there's tons of companies out there. But when it comes to our USP, which is personal genomics or preventive genomics, it's not that straightforward, because you need to have a very good, very robust database. You need to have a very good algorithm to actually be able to take someone's DNA and run a prediction on it. It's something that takes years of experience and expertise to set up. And just because of these things, amongst other roadblocks as well, these are things which are it's not something that you can go out and buy, right? So for us, the good news is that there are tons of companies that are now getting into this space, which is very, very encouraging. And Currently, at our scale, we don't have, I mean, we're lucky to be in a situation wherein there is no direct major competition for us. But at the same time, it's extremely encouraging to see that there are a lot of players, some of them very new, some of them existing players who are getting into the personal genomic space. And yeah, the next year, 2 years are going to be fantastic.
Your future plans here in the sense, Mapmygenome's future plans.
Good question. So, as I mentioned earlier, right, Mapmygenome right now, we're in a rapid expansion phase. We've had a few very good, interesting strategic tie-ups. We're working with some sports academies. We're working with insurance companies. We're working with some of the largest corporates out there. We are also, as I mentioned, in the last 1 year, we opened up 2 more reference labs other than Hyderabad. So we opened up one in Bangalore, one in Delhi. So in the short term, expansion is definitely one of the big things we're doing. We're opening up more labs. We want to be able to have a lab available in every nook and corner of the country. We want to be able to service it even better. And the other thing that we're doing is, and this is very interesting, we've recently also started doing blood tests. We've started doing radiology tests as well. And the reasoning behind it is, it's very simple, right? So DNA, we said the DNA will hold the clues to whatever comes in the future, right? What you might be predisposed to, right? But if you want a current snapshot of your health, that happens through a blood test, that happens through radiology, right? So what we've started now doing is, by taking your genetic report and doing a blood test and or radiology, we're able to combine the two using some machine learning algorithms that we have in place. And we're able to give you an overall wellness score. Wellness score.
Like
that genetically, this is exactly right. Because as I mentioned earlier, right? So if there is a risk genetically, you can modify your environment to mitigate that risk. Now, when you're changing that environment, how do you metricize the success of that? That is through taking regular health snapshots at times, and that's your blood test, etc. So by offering this periodically, combining it to your genetics, we keep giving you a wellness score, which helps you also track if you're moving in the right direction or not. So that's a complete end-to-end health picture that we're building out now.
So as you said, you need to take a swab test to know about your DNA and overall the products which you have. So one time taking a swab test is enough, or else you need to take it after 5 years or else like that? Is there any expiry date for the swab test?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and I'm sorry, I should have addressed this earlier. DNA, so one of the fantastic things about DNA is we say it's immutable in nature. It does not change. So any of the DNA tests that I'm talking about is once in a lifetime.
Once in a lifetime.
Just once. You give your sample once, get the data, your DNA will not change, right? If it did, then changing your environment becomes a very difficult task, right? You have to keep doing it every 2 years or 3 years. So DNA will not change. It's a once in a lifetime test. What will change is the input that you give to your body based on your genetics and the result that gives on the overall outcome in combination with your DNA, right? But DNA does not change over time, no.
So can you just explain about your t-shirt? Because it's very interesting. Curiosity is in my DNA.
Yeah, this is all exactly. So everything, right? That's what we were talking about, right? Who am I? Where did I come from? What workout works best for me? What diet works best for me? Who makes me so uniquely as an individual, so uniquely me, right? All of that is in my DNA. So basically, the ability to think of that question and the ability to get the answer to that question all lies in your DNA. Curiosity is in my DNA.
So that's why you're curious about your DNA.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that's a lot to know about DNA and how interesting DNA mapping actually is. So I hope that this interview was really informative and you got to know a lot about Mapmygenome. And they also have another offer running over here currently. So if you have any family member who's 90 plus, then you can reach them out through their website and they'll be offered a free swab test. So yes, again, we'll meet in another interview in N Business Insider. Until then, stay tuned to N Business.